Hello, thank you for attending my presentation on Motus Towers. I am pleased to be participating in the Wild Things Conference 2021. I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chuck Rizzo, and I'm a wildlife biologist with the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. I've been with the Forest Preserve approximately 20 years, working as a wildlife biologist. Before that, I worked at Max McGraw Wildlife Foundation as a wetland bird project leader and as a Canada goose project leader as well. I'm a graduate from the State University, New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry, located in Syracuse, New York. The title of my presentation today is What is a Motus Tower and what is it doing in Cook County? I'm not really sure what everyone's experience is with telemetry, so I will cover the basics quickly. What does a biologist mean when we talk about tracking an animal using telemetry? First off, it's using an antenna attached to a receiver, and you're trying to locate an animal that has a transmitter on it. That animal could be a Canada goose, snapping turtle, coyote, could be a Massasauga rattlesnake, white-tailed deer, brown bat, could even be a fish. These are just a few of the animals that you could track with transmitters. So now that you have your equipment and you have your animal with the transmitter on it, you're probably wondering, how do you track it? There's several different ways depending on the species and where your locations are. You could either walk around and get the locations. You could possibly take a plane or a helicopter or drive around in a vehicle. With all three, you have your antenna and your receiver. Now you have your equipment and you have your animal with the transmitter on it. You go out in the field and you try to locate the animal. Each direction that you take your antenna and point and you have the strongest signal, that is where the direction of the animal, as represented by the red line. You do this a total of 3 times from different directions. And where your lines cross, that is where your animal is located. Example here, we have a coyote. So what do you do with all your locations? You get back to the office and you plot them on a map. Here we have an example of many years worth of data, and you can see here we have actually established coyote home ranges. This is in the area of Schaumburg and Barrington, Illinois. The previous slides were examples of VHF transmitter. Here we have a satellite transmitter. This is a study being done by Gene Jacobs up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin on red-shouldered hawks. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend one of the captures of this animal and the installation of a transmitter. Here you have an example of what a summer's worth of data could be with a satellite transmitter. The signals are typically sent to a satellite, picks up the locations, and then they send it to you. The next slide, or the next picture here, we have an example of the migration of this animal. And you can see the different locations along the way, and you can program the transmitter on how many locations you would like. Here is an example of another satellite transmitter being placed on a cormorant. This was done in northeastern Illinois. This particular animal was from Barrington, Illinois. We were actually able to participate in this part of the study. This slide has actually nothing to do with transmitters. Just wanted to show you this. The color of this eye just blows me away every time I see it. I thought you would enjoy this. Now back to telemetry. This is the data from one of the transmitters on the cormorants. This area here is where the animal had the transmitter installed at its nesting site. These are the locations throughout the summer. As you can see, these range quite far. These locations would be next to impossible to obtain doing a VHF transmitter. Here we have some locations from a white-tailed deer with a satellite transmitter. The advantages of using a transmitter that's a satellite transmitter is that you can program it to as many locations as you want to take per day. This is over a couple of months. You could see the value in using a satellite transmitter. The previous slide was an example of a white-tailed deer in its home range. This is an example of a white-tailed deer during its dispersal in the fall during the mating season. This is just a couple types of information that you can gain from using these type of transmitters. Let's take a look at the different types of transmitters out there and their pluses and minuses. First, we have the VHF transmitters. These are generally light, the price is good, and the weight is good on them also. The disadvantages are you generally need a skilled biologist or technician to track the animal, and it can be labor intensive. The satellite or GPS transmitter, the advantages of these, they're easy to install, they give excellent locations. The disadvantages, however, the price is pretty high and generally pretty heavy. However, as technology increases, the weight of the transmitters go down. The next group are the geolocators. These are transmitters that pick up locations of the sun and into the transmitter. That gives you the location of the animal. However, the price is good, the weight is good on these. However, you need to get the transmitter back in order to collect the data, which that can be a problem at times. The next group are the VHF coded transmitters, the nano tags or life tags. These are the tags that are used in the Motus network and CTT network. They are good in price per transmitter. They are easy to put on and very lightweight. The disadvantage is that you need a network of towers. However, the good thing is the network of towers exists and is growing by the day. So what is the value in doing telemetry? We can determine home ranges of animals. We can determine their dispersal rates. We can also figure out their preferred habitats. We can determine their cause of mortality potentially, and also their estimated age range per group of animal. Animals that migrate, we can figure out their migration routes. The migrating animals, we could figure out their stopover ecology, where they need to stop and rest and gain fuel. Also, it can be used as a tool for disease monitoring, how these animals interact with each other, other species, as well as humans. It can help us with nuisance and complaints of animals, as we gain a better understanding. Help us make better management decisions. When talking about making management decisions, here's an example of an animal that was found during a survey. It was a sensitive bird species, and that we were able to make better management decisions on this property in regards to that species. Now, this was not information that was gained through using transmitters and receivers. However, the principles can be transferred to that type of information. This is just an example of a burn that helps us manage the habitat for this sensitive bird species. Fire is just one management tool that can be used in habitat management. Here's an example of another type, just mechanical brush removal. But this can also be done by other methods as well. Okay, let's get on with the Motus wildlife tracking system. Motus primary objective is to facilitate research and education on the ecology and conservation of migratory animals. Also, one of their other primary goals is to encourage collaboration with researchers and organizations for this type of research. As stated in the previous slide, most of the work being done with Motus is on migrating animals, from birds, bats, to insects. However, the bulk of the work being done is on birds, so I would like to cover the way birds are marked. Typically, most birds will receive a metal leg band. You could also use colored leg bands in conjunction with the metal bands in different patterns to help you ID the birds. As you see up here in the right-hand corner, you see this wren with different colored leg bands. Another way to mark birds with petigial tags. Those are tags that are located on the wings of the birds. Some birds get the metal bands and the wing tags. Some birds can only get the wing tags, as in this vulture. Colored dyes can be used. Would be non-toxic, just a simple mark on the feathers that would last for, until the bird molted. And then obviously what we've been covering are the use of transmitters, such as this satellite transmitter. That's actually, if you look on it, it's a solar-powered transmitter. And then underneath we have an oven bird with a nanotransmitter, which is used in the Motus tracking system. All these methods are good, and when used together, even better. Just one caveat: when marking and capturing most animals, but especially birds, you need special permits from federal to state permits. So how did I gain some knowledge on the Motus network? I attended a Motus workshop at the Powder Mill Avian Research Center in Pennsylvania. Before I continue talking about the Motus network system, I would like to mention cellular tracking technology. This is a similar technology to the Motus system, and they are being used in conjunction with the Motus system. I just wanted to acknowledge them and the fact that this network is being combined with the Motus system in a collaborative effort. So before I talk about the workshop, which was fantastic, the staff was very knowledgeable and eager to share their information with the participants. So basically, how the Motus system works: someone puts up an antenna and with a receiver to collect the information. Somebody puts a transmitter on a bird. Bird flies by the antenna. You pick up the information on your receiver. Then you take that information, you send it into Motus, which is up in Canada, and they process the information, and they will distribute it back to you and to the individual who tagged the birds originally. So that's it in a nutshell. So what does someone learn at a Motus workshop? Well, first of all, it is a jam-packed weekend. We learned everything from antenna assemblage to the different types of antennas. We learned how to build a sensor gnome, which is basically a receiver. And then we learned how to install transmitters on birds. Here's an example of the sensor gnome that was mentioned on the other slide. It is a very complicated piece of equipment to build, but it can be learned, and it can be a cost-saving benefit. We also learned how to install transmitters on birds. Here's a technique that was not demonstrated but was talked about, and this is just gluing transmitters on. Here's the example that we saw demonstrated on birds, was using the leg loop harness system. It's just used by gluing some elastic thread to the transmitter and then placed on the bird. Here we have two birds, a gray catbird and an ovenbird with the nanotransmitter on. You can see the transmitter really well. This is for photographic purposes only, but this is typically where the transmitters lie on the bird. And on the left, you see an example of the size of the transmitter. We also learned about tower construction and placement. For example, here we have a tower that was placed in the field, run by solar panels. The slide on the right is an example of a tower attached to a building, to the research center, and powered by plugins. So what will the Motus network look like in Cook County Forest Preserve? Here we have our office. This will be the location of the first tower. Potentially, we have the potential of gaining 4 more towers, but this will be the first one, and from this point, we will work our way eastward towards the lake. We actually have a tower behind our office that is not ours. We asked if we could use it by placing our antennas on it, and that was a big no, which is actually fine. That is a tower that is being operated by Homeland Security. This is most likely what the towers will look like in Cook County. They will either be attached to another structure, could be a tower, could be a telephone pole, an abandoned telephone pole, could be placed on a roof, or could be attached to a building. Generally, it will be close to a building so we can use the power from the building. Also, we will avoid putting them in fields due to vandalism. If you remember the sensor gnome from one of the previous slides that you build yourselves, there is another option. You can get a pre-made receiver. Here we have one that we purchased from Low-Tech. The exciting thing is it just came the other day. Our goal is to gain 3 to 4 more towers. This would be one possible configuration of what the network would look like in Cook County. The largest star in the west there, that is where our office is located. That would be the first antenna. We would work our way towards the lake from there. So, why get involved with the Motus network? In North and South America, we have lost 2.9 billion birds since 1970. We need to fill in the missing pieces. From migration routes, wintering grounds, breeding grounds, the Motus network is another great tool that can be used to help solve these puzzles. So why should we get involved with Motus? This is the type of technology that can be used to assist researchers to grasp a better understanding of the issues affecting birds and our environment. And if you look at our location on this map here, we are located in 2 of the major flyways in North America. So we're in the middle of the migration routes. We can help assist gain information on stopover ecology, potential for disease monitoring, and contaminant monitoring. So here is the current world map of the Motus network. We have towers in North America, Europe, South America, also in Australia. Here we are in North America. This is the beginning stages of the Motus network. If you look here, just off the coast in Canada, is the deployment of the first tower in 2013. In 2016, 3 years later, you can see how much the network has grown. 2018, 2 years later, it has grown exponentially. And here we are in 2021. Again, it continues to grow at a rapid rate. Here we have a close-up of the central United States. And if you look in this location here on the western side of Lake Michigan is where we are located. And you can see that there are no towers in this area. This would be a benefit to the research being done on birds. So why would it be beneficial for Cook County to be involved in a project like this? If you look at this area here, this is where Cook County is located, roughly in this area. It is a pivotal location in 2 major flyways. And if you examine the flyways, you can see the interconnectedness up in the northern areas from here all the way over to the other side of the globe. It is not a problem for one person, one country. It is a global problem. We are all connected. And through contributing to this, we may be able to solve the problem together. So what would be our goals for the Cook County Motus system? One would be to help expand the Motus and CTT network for the benefit of all, animals and people. To help us gather information on how birds, bats, insects used our forest preserves. Stopover ecology, migration routes of the animals that use our lands for summer and winter. It would be another tool to help us make management decisions about the forest preserves. The potential for us to gain better understanding of how diseases move through our environment. Potential for us to gain a better understanding of how environmental pollutants and contaminants move through our environment. In order for this to work, we would need to place radio tags and nano tags on the birds. Also, to collaborate with other organizations such as the Midwest Migration Network for a collaborative process. There are many species of birds that we would love to work with in the Cook County area. These are just a few. Any bird that would be involved in our Motus work would most likely be included in our ongoing heavy metal testing using dried blood spots. The dried blood spots also have potential to be used for other contaminant work as well. These birds would also be included in our disease surveillance program, such as testing for avian influenza. I would like to thank you for your time and for listening to my presentation on Motus towers. I hope you enjoy the Wild Things Conference 2021. If you have any questions or comments about the Motus Tower Network in Cook County, do not hesitate to send me an email. Thank you, and enjoy the conference.